All righty, and we are live. Welcome to another Lunch and Learn with Purse Strings. My name is Maggie Nielsen. I'm a partner here at Purse Strings, and we're all about doing this lives to get some information, some knowledge, and some true life stories out there from our Purse Strings approved professionals. Those professionals have all been vetted and approved by Purse Strings. That really, these professionals love to serve women, love to focus on serving the female market. And one of those professionals is Linda Lingo. So we're so excited to have her on today and talk about her client, who we're going to call Jane, and kind of her creating that roadmap to retirement and realizing it's more than just finances. So I'm really excited for this conversation today. But before we jump in, Linda, could you give us a little intro of who you are and what you do?
Love to. Thank you, Maggie, for having me on today. Appreciate it very much. So, I'm Linda Lingo. I'm a financial life coach. I threw life in there because I've lived quite a life, and I am here to help women gain confidence and clarity with their money. Now, those are words that are bandied about. What it really means is helping women to really understand how to handle their money so they don't have the fear, the guilt, the
Yeah.
shame on maybe not thinking they don't do it right or don't do it well. And so my women, my girls, typically are going through a life transition, something like a divorce, or maybe they are an empty nester for the first time, usually happens in our early 50s, or maybe they are um, changing jobs or changing careers. It's usually something like that that triggers, oh, I really need to get my money in order. And so I help them work through a program that I've developed. And we'll talk about that as we're talking about Jane, how I helped her walk through her transition. And the women I'm focusing on right now are women who want to transition, and I use that intentionally, transition into retirement, and that's usually wanting to retire five within the next 1 to 10 years, if you will. So, and we'll be talking about that too with Jane. So, I help women get comfortable with their money and have fun doing it.
Yes, and Linda is all about a good time, all about living up retirement and still working a bit, as Linda is always traveling and doing something fun as well. So you should be following her. And if anyone tuning in has questions along the way, throw them in the chat. We're happy to answer them throughout. If you're watching the replay, you can still throw them in the comments and we'll work on getting back to those. So, Linda, I know your client Jane came to you because of a transition. So, what really kind of triggered her to come to you? What were some of her worries or concerns?
So, Jane had gone through a divorce earlier and was now thinking about retiring. And she had about 10 years to go, but it was a time for her to really focus on um, thinking about retirement and what she wanted it to look like, because it wasn't going to be anything like what she had anticipated.
Right.
You know, we all get married thinking this is going to be forever, and she wasn't. She was divorced. She had a couple kids, but she knew she had to rely on herself. So it was mainly thinking about retirement, and she really didn't know how to go about that. So that was her initial reason for coming to me, to really work on her own roadmap, if you will, for what she wanted her retirement to look like, and then how was she going to be able to finance it, to afford it.
Right. And I know when Jane came to you, she was about, 60 years old. So,
Yeah.
definitely, like you said, closer to retirement. But I know, we're not like working in coal mines or things like that, like we used to be. So there is this like, do I work part-time? Do I just, jump in and do full retirement? Like, what's this middle ground? Do I need the middle
Yeah.
ground? And I'm sure these were a lot of questions that she was kind of asking herself as well.
Absolutely. It was like, okay, do I quit cold turkey? When do I quit? Do I have enough money saved up? Because she had a career, and so she had been putting away into her 401k. And or, do I transition? What does that look like? Can I consult, yeah, in her area of expertise? What does transition look like? And so that was one of her big questions, was how much do I need to retire?
Mhm.
um, what kind of lifestyle can I afford? And then what else am I going to do? If I don't work anymore. So those were some three really big questions, which were super fun to work through with her.
Yeah, because I want to touch on, you did say you're kind of help with that like life retirement transition there. And part of that is like, all right, now I have, an extra 40 hours every week. What am I going to do with that? So
Yeah.
probably, sitting with her. And so what did you kind of go through on that first meeting of like getting to know each other? What was some of that information that you gathered?
Yeah. Some of it was very basic, just getting to know her, what had she done, what were some of her careers that she had, what was her education, what was her background, just to get an idea of maybe some of the things she could do as she was transitioning into retirement. Understanding she went through a divorce, she had a couple of kids, but she was not relying on them for any of her retirement. She enjoyed seeing them and spending time with them, but she knew she wasn't going to live with them or even needed to live real close to them. Understanding, her family dynamics, understanding what she enjoyed doing. What did she do for fun? Was she athletic? Was she artsy? What were those things that she really enjoyed doing? And what would she like to do more of? So we talked about her values. We talked about her friends, were they, because the social aspect is a really important aspect of retirement, and it's one that people don't talk about nearly enough. So we talked about the social aspect of it and got to know, you know what 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 gave her joy. Was she an outgoing person? Did she really thrive on those interactions, or was she more of an introvert and enjoyed people but didn't really need those to fuel herself? So those were the kind of conversations. Of course, we talked about her finances, got a snapshot of what her retirement savings were. But it was actually more of a get to know you kind of conversation than,
Yeah.
oh, let's look at the numbers, the dollars and cents. It's actually a second conversation that we had.
Yeah, because I mean that money, that Social Security is really important, but
Mhm.
no matter what your money is, what's your kind of identity? Who are you and who do you want to be in this next chapter, especially now that maybe you're single, maybe you're ready to mingle, maybe you want to be grandma all the time, really,
Yeah,
putting these different things in place that can make her be her. And especially that social aspect that you brought up.
yeah.
We see this, I
Mhm.
think, most commonly in people who are like in a hospital or, teachers where they're always around people, different ages, different, things going on all the time. And so leaving all that can be really identity crisis leading almost.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So, which triggers two things in my thought process, and that's number one. Um, I like what Jane Fonda calls it. When you're entering retirement, it's kind of your third act, and
Hmm.
you've had your first 30 years, your second 30 years, and now it's probably your third, 30 years. And when you go to a play, you know, honestly, the first two acts can be so. It's the third act that people remember.
Yeah.
And I've really taken that to heart. It's like, oh my God, it doesn't really matter what I did. It's who I am. And
Yeah.
that's what I bring to my clients. It's like, that's awesome that you were a teacher or professor, and that you wrote a book and that you've influenced these students. That's awesome. And now carrying that forward, who do you want to be? not
Hmm.
not who what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? And the other thought was, oh, I read a great book. It's a doctor who is a hospice doctor, and his comment was, the dying don't talk about they wish they had more money.
Right.
The dying wish they had more time.
Hmm.
And so when I work with clients, it's like we have a finite amount of time in each day. We don't know how many days we have.
Right.
Only the good Lord, I believe, knows that. But it's how can you make the best use of your time? What do you want to do? And that is do. What do you want to do? How do you want to be with that time? And for a lot of women, we're givers. We're naturally givers. And it's really an opportunity to give back, to serve, if you will.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways to do that. And I'm not saying you have to do that, but with many of my clients, that is one of the things that comes up. It's like, now I have the time to donate to causes that are really
Hmm.
meaningful to me. And I think that's a wonderful idea, and it's a great way to make an impact, whether it's
Mhm.
just in your family or in your community or state or world. And it's a way to give back and to make an impact and to leave a legacy. And
Yeah.
that's how we can do it. So we talked through that quite a bit because it's yeah, the money's important, but I think life is more important. And so
Mhm.
let's live a life that really gives us a sense of meaning and worth and purpose.
I love that. I mean, yeah, exactly. And I've never heard anyone die saying they wish they had more money or focused on their money more, but really like living their best dreams, leaving that legacy, like you said. And leaving a legacy is not always just leaving cash behind and having a charitable fund. But the actions that you actually took to kind of be there and who people kind of remember you as.
Mm.
And so when talking to Jane, what were some of the things that she loved to do that she wanted to make sure were prioritized in this plan?
Yeah, so Jane was definitely an arts and music person. She
Mm,
had been a professor and loved the arts, loved music. She had actually been played an instrument at one point in time. Never really had time to be like in the community symphony or anything like that. So that was one thing she wanted to brush up on her
yeah,
skills and participate there. She wanted to give back to her community, and so she was looking at different nonprofits that she could contribute to. She was thinking about actually volunteering in the local library, and she ended up having a little reading time with like kindergarten kids. So once a week, she ended up having a story time, which she thoroughly enjoyed. And so those were a couple of things that really sparked her interest, as well as a couple other nonprofit fundraisers that she was very instrumental in, and those were local things. So she also wanted to do some traveling.
of
She'd
course.
done some. She really enjoyed what she did, but she wanted to do more. So I think that was a natural attraction for us because she had seen that I love to travel, and so those were a couple of things that as we went through, what really sparked her interest. Those are a couple of things that definitely surfaced. Yeah. So and so we worked through a bucket list. People sometimes don't like to call it a bucket list. They think, oh, I'm gonna die, that's what I gotta do. I call it your adventure list, or
Yep.
what are some of the things that you want to participate in, you know, in the next, you know, however many years, but let's get them down on paper, because once you get them on paper, you're a bit more committed. Not that you have to do them, but at least then they're down, and you can prioritize, and that's also a great way to incorporate them into your budget or your intentional money spending plan, as I prefer to call it. So I worked with her. I helped her work through and develop that list that was really meaningful. And so that's something I do with each client because it's individual. As I say, there's no
Yep.
one size fits all when it comes to retirement. At least I don't believe so. I think developing the life that you desire to live, and that's unique for each one of us. And so we work through that. I do that with each one of my clients. Just considering transitioning, and then of course the other part of her transition was she did decide that she wanted to consult. She didn't feel like she could leave uh, academia cold turkey. And so she brainstormed with a couple of the professors and the dean, and she was able to come up with a couple ideas where she could still do a little teaching, more in her schedule and in the subject matter that really made her happy. And so that was great too. So it was a nice transition plan for her that has worked out really well. So that was her game plan, her
Is
roadmap.
that It sounds like she's, I mean, yeah, doing all the things that really she loves to do. She's finding kind of her hot spots in all these areas. And, um, you know, being a student, there's nothing better than having a teacher come in who's like beyond passionate about doing whatever they're talking about. And
Exactly.
so, I'm sure some of the consulting brought in some money, but as you know, I know you do life, but also finance. And so, a big worry people have, which I'm sure Jane had, especially as a single woman, is like the fear of outliving your money. because women typically, do live longer than men. And you do want to be able to go on those trips, but you also don't want to outlive your money. It's this balance.
Right.
And so, how do you kind of help her through that and assuring her, where she's at and that she can do both, or maybe she can't? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that we do is, first of all, I take them through an exercise of defining the retirement that they want to live. And then we put dollars and cents to it. And so one of the things she decided to do was, in her case, now this isn't for everyone, she decided to downsize. She decided she didn't need the house that she had and that she really wanted a condo. She wanted something that if she did decide to go visit the kids or travel or do whatever, she could lock it up and leave and she didn't have to worry about it. So she did decide to downsize. She picked the location, so it was fairly close to where she was, different neighborhood, but
Yeah.
and so that was part of her plan. So we put dollars and cents to all that. Okay, this is what her money spending plan was right now. This is what she was living on. This is what it cost her. She did the research. This is what it was going to cost her in retirement. And so, then she had her money spending plan in place. And from that, we could then decide, okay, when was when would be the best time? We looked at her pension. She had a pension, she had her 401k, she had her social security. We had a big long conversation about when would be the best time to start drawing on her social security, because there's a lot of different times from age 62 to your full retirement age to age 70, and each one of those has benefits for waiting. And so we looked at her number. She printed down her statement and we looked at that, and what the advantages were of waiting. Should she wait? Did she have to wait? And so then we had a cash flow statement. Okay, this is where your income's coming from. This is how much you'll need. And then, of course, I always say we need to have, and then we talked about buckets of money. You need so much in cash, so it's easily available. You need so much like in 3 to 5 years, so you don't have to, excuse me, draw on your retirement plan, excuse me, in a down market. And then how much did she need to leave invested so it could grow, because we don't want to outlive our money. We don't want to end up
Right.
living on our kids' sofa, as I say. So yeah, we looked at all of those different scenarios and came up with a roadmap for her. And that's when she like let up this big sigh, and she's like, I can do this and it's going to work. And we had to tweak it some. I'm not saying it was perfect the first time around. Most things aren't, but she made a few adjustments. She decided to change out her car.
Mhm.
She had a car that was pretty expensive to keep up, and she said that. She goes, man, I spend a lot on, not that it needs a lot of repairs, but when I take it in, it's expensive. And so she did research, and I had a few suggestions, and she decided to sell her car and get a more economical car. So I mean, and those are big decisions, but they're things that we were able to work through, the pros, the cons. How did she feel about it? And she was able to see, oh, okay, so if I tweak this, I can still keep this. Or if I do this will get free up some money, some cash, so I can maybe take that river cruise I've always wanted to take down the Danube River, and so it's it was so much fun, but it was really just getting her to dream, because I
Mhm.
think so many women, when they're divorced, they think, oh shit, I can't retire when I want to do it. I'm not going to
Right.
be able to. I mean, that was me.
Yeah.
I mean, I am really, I don't admit this very often. One of the reasons I stayed in my 40-year marriage was because of the money. How
Mhm.
sad is that? I knew what my retirement was going to be. We had it planned out. We both had really good incomes, great social security, a pen. I mean, it was really sweet. And I was so unhappy. I finally admitted it to myself after
Yeah.
40 years. It's like, I can't stay in this any longer. The money isn't worth it. Number one. Number two, what the hell am I going to do for another 30 years with this man who I can't stand? How stupid is that? Well, anyway, I've forgiven myself for for that and I
Good.
moved on. But I'm just saying, I've been there. And I
Oh,
think many women stay there. And I just encourage you to think outside the box, to dream. And so that's what I help women do. And let them know that, you know, whether you're living in a small studio apartment, you can still be happy.
hmm,
That's not the end of the world. Or whether you're living in a nice big house that's paid for. Great. There's all sorts of lifestyles, let me tell
right.
you. So anyway,
I mean, and like you said at the beginning, when you die, you're never like, oh, wow, I wish I saved more money. And so you're not staying in this relationship just because of the money. And so, and it's great that you really talked about first of what are your dreams and aspirations. And then you got to the money, and then you can see, all right, how do these two things really fit together? It's not like, well, you only have this much, so decide your goals on this budget. Because then it's
yeah,
very restrictive. It's very almost sad. You try to think of everything free you could do.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
agree, as we get older, I don't need 5 bedrooms. If it's just me, I want to lock it up and I want to go take that cruise, or I don't want to take care of a car, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like, it's just me. I'm putting myself first, and this is what I want to do. I feel the car thing. I am like right there with her. I just don't get why they're so expensive. And so I'm just like,
Oh, yeah,
if I could just,
yeah,
Uber everywhere, maybe that is cheaper. Like, you never know sometimes until you sit down and do the math.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, I want to continue talking about Jane, but I have to just insert
Yeah.
this little thing. We're not limited to retiring within the United States. So I
Oh,
was just down in Mexico. I was visiting a friend who is we call them expats. So she's retired in Mexico. She has a lovely 3-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. She's paying $650 a month in rent.
amazing.
You know, so there is life beyond the. Now, I'm not advocating you move out of the United States. I'm just saying there's a lot of options out there. I have another client and good friend, and she's in Athens,
Hmm.
and she just bought a condo, and it's so affordable. Anyway, there are so many options. I think sometimes we get so
We got like
tunnel
horse
focused.
blinders on.
Yeah, yeah, it's like this is all we can do. This is all we know. And I think that's why I love traveling. It's like criminy, this is awesome. And she doesn't have a car. We
Yep.
walked everywhere. I mean, I was averaging 10 miles a day down there, and we're talking cobblestone streets. It was really interesting, but I loved it. I loved it. And she does too, obviously. So, and when you move away and you have an extra bedroom, you get a lot of
Yeah.
friends that come and visit. So
Especially if
you're not
everyone's retired.
isolated. Yeah. And
Um,
she's made wonderful friends. And that's the other thing. So nice expat communities. So you don't feel isolated or alone. And I think that's really important
yeah.
in retirement, whether you're transitioning or into retirement, is don't isolate, don't confine yourself. I mean, I know, COVID was a whole nother thing, well, let's leave that behind. Let's move forward. But I think it's really important to understand yourself. And that's why I had those conversations about, are you a people person? Is that really important or not? And she really enjoyed people. And that's one of the reasons why she continued teaching was
Right.
it fed her soul. It gave her purpose, but it also gave her interaction with those younger students. And then transitioning to even younger kids, reading at the library. She just so enjoyed that. So there's so many things that we can do, and there's so many nonprofits that can use
Hmm.
our time, our knowledge,
Hmm.
and our help.
Definitely. Yeah. Those teachers, they always love to teach, no matter what age. They're always
Yeah.
they're always teachers at heart. Um, and so the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on here is making sure that we touch on long-term care, especially again as a single woman. And I was thinking, maybe if you're in Europe, it's all free because they have a different healthcare system. But if you're staying, in America, in our country, long-term care insurance, maybe you don't go that route. Maybe you just save up money. How do you kind of help Jane through this again as a single woman now, getting
Yeah.
older? How do you help her navigate that?
Well, I definitely bring up, it's a discussion. I'm very passionate about long-term care as being a single woman myself. And so we go over the options. So what are your options? You can get long-term care insurance as a
Mhm.
standalone insurance policy. You can get it as a rider, they call it, on a whole life or universal life insurance policy, or you can self-insure. But you need to know that on average, you're going to spend about 3 years, that's an average, 3 years needing some kind of long-term care. Now that you might still be in your home, it just means you can't do 2 acts of daily living. Like maybe you need help bathing and cooking. We, we talk about the costs and what that looks like, and it's up to her. But I do go over the dollars and cents and the averages. And there you can Google, what is long-term care insurance cost in my area, my state. It's definitely by state. You can take a look at that. And then thanks to Purse Strings, I have a great insurance person that I refer them to. And so
Perfect.
I love Purse Strings because I've made some great connections, professional connections that I get to use for things like that. And so like anyway, so there's different ways that you can fund that. And so we talk about what those options are, kind of look at, what are the dollars and cents, what can she afford? And then, I mean, she makes the ultimate decision, of course, but it's definitely a
Right.
conversation we have.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's important things that we need to be talking about. And I'm so great working with a professional because they'll also bring these things back up to you and be like, oh yeah, I do need to think of that. Oh yeah, I need to think of this, and
Yeah.
help make sure all those things are in action. So can you give us a little update of like where Jane is today and maybe like how she's feeling about her retirement and these next journey and this next the final act, third act?
Yeah, the third act, not final. We call it the third act because it might be the final act. But so Jane has transitioned. She is so thankful she sold her house when she did. Of course, nobody can time the market, but
Right.
and she had quite a bit of equity, so she was able to buy her condo. No, so she has no mortgage, which
Good
was
for
another
her.
reason she decided to do that. She's changed out her cars, loves her new, more economical car. She did decide to buy a new, it's not a brand, it's a new used one. It had
Mhm.
like minimal miles on it, but she was able to get it for, quite a bit less than a new one. Because I always say you
Yeah,
drive a new car off the lot and it depreciates right then and there.
sure does.
And we had that conversation too. And then she has decided to continue one more semester. Let's see, no, well, I think one more year of teaching, but she's reduced what she's teaching at the college level. And she has some plans in place for a couple trips. So in her part of her budgeting process was she wanted to do one more significant trip a year and then a couple more domestic. And one of those, of course, was going to see her daughters. So
Of course.
she's got that plan in place, and she's just happy as a clam. She's enjoying it. She's taking her music lessons, and she's going to try out for the symphony. I think. Let's see. I'm trying to remember time wise. She may have done it this summer, but definitely next summer. And so she's putting into place. She's putting into place. She loves it. She goes, I have my list. She goes, I'm checking it off. She goes, this is so fun. And with the money, her spending plan is working out, and she's able to save. That was the other thing. She wanted to save for her trips before she took them. She didn't want to come
Right.
home and have a lot of credit card debt, which we definitely had those conversations. So she's able to, because of the things she put in place, she's able to save for her trips. And then she knows, if she can afford, business class or priority, seating on the
Right.
airplane, or first class, or, can she, is she single? So is she going to take the trip alone, or does she want to invite her daughter to go with her? And can she afford to pay for her daughter? So those are things that she's able to put into place. And she's just thrilled. So her retirement is on track. And the other conversation we had was healthcare. So in addition to
Yeah.
long-term care, it's healthcare. And so we also had quite a conversation about healthcare costs, and setting aside for that, just so she wasn't caught off guard. So
I love that. I get
she's
goosebumps
happy.
hearing about this just because I'm so excited for her and that life she's going to
Yeah.
live. Because I mean, just there's nothing more excited than people living their best life. So I'm so
Absolutely.
excited you were able to get her and help her get there. So I appreciate you sharing your story, and it really shows how working with Linda can, help you reach those retirement goals or whatever transition you're kind of going through and getting to that next step on your journey.
Yeah.
Um,
So can I put a little plug in?
yeah,
So
please do.
I'm offering a master class, starts next Thursday, October 12th, and it's all about women transitioning to their best retirement. And so I'm helping them work through the same process that I helped Jane work through. It's just in a group setting, and we will meet for 3 months, 2 hours a month, and work through those questionnaires, look at the cash flow statements, but most of all, help them put together their dream retirement and then how to finance it. So, master class starting next week, the 12th. Love to have you sign up, and you can DM me, or you can go on my. That's probably the best way. DM me, and I will give you all the details.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely look into that if that's a transition that you're going to go through soon.
Mhm.
As you can see all the great progress that is made. I'm just thinking of like a bunch of women coming up with their best plans. It's going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
I want that idea, and I want that idea, and I want that idea. My list is going to be so long. Um, but no, this has
That's the
been a.
one thing.
Go
That's the
ahead.
one thing about a master class is the women get to know each other because it's women who are considering retiring 1 to 10 years. So
Yeah.
it's not like you have to retire next year. Actually a couple years out is the best time.
Right.
That 5 year window is perfect. But 1 to 10 years, because they get to hear what the other women are thinking. It's like, like one gal said, I never thought about retiring overseas. And I said, it's a possibility. It
Mhm.
may not be for you, but it's something to consider. Or downsize, so many things. Anyway, they hear all these other ideas, and then it's like, I never thought about that. I want to think about that. I could put that on my maybe list. So it's just fun.
Definitely. Yeah, I could see that those lists getting very long of great ideas.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on today, Linda, and sharing that information. And if you're interested in
Mhm.
working with Linda or joining her mastermind, your website's lindalingo.com.
It is, and you've got my
Awesome.
email right there, linda@lindalingo.com. You can certainly email me with any questions as well.
Perfect. All right. You guys have a great rest of your week. Have a happy retirement planning session. And thank you
Yeah.
again, Linda, for coming on today. We'll be back here again next week to talk to everyone soon. Bye.
Thanks, Maggie. Bye bye.